Jennifer, we don't have a queue up for the trial, Chauvin trial update, but I know that you have pulled the notes together for that, and I'm going to
Yeah.
turn things over to you.
Yeah. So today was day 4 of the Derek Chauvin trial. And so his girlfriend, Courtney, of about 3 years, she testified today and talked a little bit about the shared opioid addiction they had. That wasn't, something that was developed, like they were out buying it on the street or taking it recreationally. They were both prescribed opioids for conditions they had and developed an addiction from that, like many people that develop opioid addictions. It's an epidemic. Um, we also had 2 of the paramedics that treated George Floyd. One testified that there was a mix-up with the calls, and initially it was like declared a non-emergency response. And then when they arrived there, the other testified that he believed Floyd to already be dead, and that he flatlined on the way to the hospital. And they were basically doing everything they could to resuscitate him with no luck. There was also some audio released of Chauvin basically saying, this is one person's opinion. We can, I had to do what I basically had to do what I had to do because this was a big guy and we needed to subdue him. And I feel like he was on something. There were, I believe, another witness that was there who broke down in tears, an older gentleman who broke down in tears, who was one of the people that actually tried to intervene and stop Derek Chauvin from, keeping his knee on George Floyd's neck. So there's a lot going on in this trial. I think so far there have been about 17 witnesses, and the prosecution seems to be, of course, building a very strong case. There was also a retired police officer that testified that, used force, but basically he used more force than you really should have. And not so many words. So there's a lot going on in this trial. And what looks like a cut and dry, guilty case or a guilty verdict, or what should be a guilty verdict for Derek Chauvin, we know is probably not as cut and dry as we think, because that is what we have seen historically. But it's a really, really sad state of affairs. They also had the cashier that Floyd gave the counterfeit $20 bill to when he was trying to purchase a pack of cigarettes, who basically said that, he offered to pay for the cigarettes and that he wished that he'd never taken the bill. So he's experiencing a lot of guilt over this as well. A lot of the witnesses have broken down in tears. It's been a very sad state of affairs. The family has been there. It's been a really traumatic experience for a lot of people that witnessed this to have to relive this experience. And so, and a lot of people are saying if he isn't convicted, America's going to riot, and they will, and they should.
The thing that's jumped out at me in the pieces that I've been able to catch in reading the summaries and the video clips, and I'm very cautious when I just see video clips, Jennifer, because the mainstream, this is a disadvantage the mainstream media has. They're showing the thing continuously. I can't digest it continuously, so they're just going to show the stuff that's going to get the most clicks. I mean, I get it. I know that's how the game's played. I totally get it. So I'm cautious on the clips. But what's jumping out at me is the defense just doesn't seem to have much of a case on this.
No,
It feels like the defense is almost phoning it in.
Yeah, well, the defense was he was a drug addict. But I was also reading before the show when I was trying to pull all this together that they're not going to hear, the jury's not going to hear about Chauvin's other uses of excessive force. There's 6 other uses of excessive force, and they're not going to hear about those. But here's my question. You can't tell me this isn't about race. When I was younger, I had an opioid addiction that developed the same way. I worked with racehorses. I injured my back. I took Vicodin. I became dependent on it. I was buying it elsewhere. And if I was that person that went in with that $20 counterfeit bill, do you think this would have been the results? Because I'm a white woman. Let's be real. I'd be a victim. I wouldn't be, or this would have never happened, or I would be the victim. I wouldn't be the person being accused of, she was a drug addict. She did these terrible things. I would be this poor white woman who was accosted by police, who had this sad addiction. Let's be real.
Vicodin scares me to death. I mean, not to sidebar too far on that. I had an injury. I shattered my collarbone, dislocated my shoulder. They gave me Vicodin. I took them for about a day, and then I was like, I'm not taking these things anymore. Like, no
Yeah.
freaking way. Um,
I haven't touched any in like probably 17 or 18 years. And the last time I did, it had been a really long time since I'd taken any, and I had something, I think I had like a wisdom tooth extracted. And I was itching so bad that like I'd only taken half of one. And I have not like taken them even through medical necessity. I will take some Tylenol. I will do whatever, but I won't touch it again.
I've said this before, and I've said this on other cases. I'm going to say this on this case. We have this document here in the United States. It's called the Constitution. Within the Constitution, there is the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments. There's 27 amendments total. I'd like to do a wink and a grin and go technically there's 25 because you have prohibition, the repeal of prohibition. So I like to wink and grin. There's 27. Anyway, neither here nor there. The Bill of Rights makes some things really clear. One of the big things it makes clear that the police are not judge, jury, and executioner on the side of the road. We have this thing in the United States. It is called due process. And when a person is accused of a crime, such as trying to pass off a $20 counterfeit bill to buy some cigarettes, due process means that there should be a trial for that. And nowhere in any state or federal law, because the Constitution and the Bill of Rights provides protection against cruel and unusual punishment, the death penalty for trying to pass off a $20 bill falls under cruel and unusual punishment. The fact that George Floyd was a drug addict or had a drug problem or had drugs in his bloodstream is inconsequential to this case, which is the central thing that the prosecutors are arguing. What killed George Floyd was not the drugs in his system. What killed George Floyd was a knee on his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds, not the 8 minutes and 46 seconds we thought, Jennifer. And of those 9 minutes and 29 seconds, 53 seconds he was convulsing. When I heard that, it just became beyond repugnant for me.
Yeah, but again, here's the thing: we talk about the Bill of Rights and we talk about the Constitution, but those things were designed to protect people that look like us, David, not people of color. I mean, that's just the reality, and it's unfortunate that people still, even after the constitutional amendments that came after the Civil War. I mean, we can talk about the abolition of slavery and Honest Abe and all of that shit. But slavery was never actually abolished. I mean, they implemented the black codes. They had convict leasing programs, Jim Crow, all of these things. Slavery was never fucking abolished. We can sugarcoat it. We can give it lip service all we want. But the fact of the matter remains, white people, the system, systemic racism has done everything in its power to keep Black people and people of color more broadly, Indigenous people, Latinx people, oppressed because they need to stay in power. And I'm sure somebody out there is going to choose to know what she's talking about. I'm a historian. I have fields in race, slavery, and U.S. empire, American Indian and Indigenous history, Latin America, and post-human studies. I have degrees in history and the comparative history of ideas. So yeah, I know what the hell I'm talking about.
Mic drop. We need like a mic drop button for you. Mic drop. Very well said, Jennifer. It really is. It's tough for me in my role to speculate. I will just be beyond. This is what I'll say. I will be beyond stunned if there is not a conviction on one of the three crimes that he is being charged with. On the other side of the coin, and Jennifer, to your point, it just takes one juror.
Yeah, just one. Just one person that's like, he was a drug addict. And they say that opioids depress respiration. So that probably factored into it. If he hadn't been doing drugs, then this wouldn't have happened. There's going to be a person that has that logic because that's going to be part of the defense's case.